Tbn Prime Alert had er een vraaggesprek met de CCJ, de Caribbean Court of Justice President, de Honorable Mr. Justice Winston Anderson. En met Mr. Anderson spraken wij over het functioneren van de Caribbean Court of Justice, maar wat het zou betekenen indien Suriname, dan wel het parlement, besluit om toe te treden tot de Caribbean Court of Justice. De voordelen welke niet alleen Suriname, maar welke de regio hieraan zou hebben. Wij voeren nu naar het volgende vraaggesprek.
I think it went extremely well. I think we had an opportunity to present the CCJ's position as regards the possibility that Suriname could send its appeals to us. I thought the members of my team made the case very clearly as to what that would involve. I think that the parliamentarians, I thought the judiciaries, I thought other stakeholders in Suriname have a fairly clear idea as to what it would mean for Suriname to join the appellate jurisdiction. And of course, we would welcome Suriname with open arms.
Yes, but now Suriname has to make that decision. Yes?
Yes.
Do you think that the CCJ was convincing enough today?
Well, as I said, I think we put the case with clarity. I hope we put the case with conviction. Because there are very important issues at stake. It's not just a matter about adjoining a court. It's about really becoming even more critical member of our community. And it's about sharing our jurisprudence between the common law and the civil law. It's about making our institutions stronger. And it's about, I think, bringing our people together more closely. As I said, we are separated by geography. Some of us are on islands, the mainland. We are sometimes separated by languages, separated by other factors. But at the base, I think we are one Caribbean people, and we have to cherish those institutions that bring us together as one. At the same time, of course, we must respect the tradition and the legal systems in our various countries. So the proposal is that the CCJ would establish a civil law chamber in the court. That civil law chamber would be made up of basically Surinamese judges and jurists, support staff, research officers, registry staff. They'll be all speaking Dutch. They'll be all be familiar with the traditions of the Suriname legal system. And then the appeals would come to that chamber and decisions would be rendered. The chamber would be housed here in Paramaribo. So it's not a matter of traveling to Trinidad or anywhere else. The advocates who argue the case would be Surinamese attorneys. And as I said, the judges would be Surinamese, or they'll be drawn from somewhere else in the Dutch Caribbean, maybe Curaçao or Saint Martin, or in the Netherlands for that matter. But the point is that we are not seeking in any way to compromise or undermine the traditional legal culture which has developed in Suriname. We see diversity as a strength, and we would be very, very happy to have Suriname come in to the family of countries bringing cases to the CCJ so that we can expand and enrich our jurisprudence.
And if the Surinamese parliament makes the decision to join the CCJ, what are the steps that has to be taken?
Well, there are a number of steps. Of course, that's the first one, that the Parliament would need to vote in favor of joining the CCJ. I believe we had several parliamentarians here, and I believe they listened with an open mind, and we'll see what their decision is. If it is to join the CCJ, then the very next step would be for the President of the Republic to withdraw the reservation that Suriname entered in 2001 when it signed on to the agreement. So that reservation meant that Suriname would not join the appellate jurisdiction. But that was 21 years ago. And it may very well be that the time has come, given developments that we have in technology, given greater awareness of our legal systems, that Suriname now feels comfortable in joining. So if that's the decision, Suriname would withdraw the reservation. There would be a discussion amongst the heads of government, of which of course Suriname is a part, and that discussion would center around what are the financial implications of Suriname joining. Now, those are far less than if Suriname attempted to do its own court, because we have run the numbers and we have arrived at a rough figure as to what would be needed to invest in the trust fund to support that civil law chamber. But that investment is not borne exclusively by Suriname. It's borne by all 12 participating countries. So Suriname's share is likely to be a pretty small figure. I think we did some very rough calculations, and we're talking about $228,000. And that's not a one-off. That's not a regular payment. It's a one-off payment. Of course, the final decision will be taken by the caucus of heads, and in that there could be some negotiations about who would bear what. But strictly speaking, that's the kind of baseline figure we're looking at. Having secured the funding, the next step would be to constitute the civil law chamber. And that involves a process of selecting the judges who would sit in the chamber. I went through this morning the various provisions in our agreement that are important to selecting persons who sit on the commission, and then the commission selects the judges. The basic point is that Suriname has many pathways to nominating people to sit on the commission that is going to choose the judges. So we would expect to have several Surinamese nationals on the commission, or the commission can consult with stakeholders in Suriname, whether it's the judiciary here in Suriname, the Bar Association, the educational institutions, Parliament, Minister of Justice, the Attorney General. All of those persons could be consulted with a view to deciding, and it is the decision of the Commission, who are the judges who would staff the civil law chamber. Once that's done, the next step is for the chamber to then decide on the procedural rules that would govern appeals coming from the court here in Suriname. So again, the CCJ is not imposing any rules. It is for the chamber to decide what are the rules that they will use to govern appeals coming in from Suriname. We frankly anticipate that if there is the intention, there's goodwill, and there's the energy that's placed behind this endeavor, that we could look at inaugurating, starting up, that civil law chamber by the 5th of October this year, 2026. And if that was the decision, I promise that the Caribbean Court of Justice would return to Suriname in October for the purpose of swearing in the judges at the civil law chamber and starting the process of hearing appeals.
Every step happens under guidance of the CCJ?
Now, not of the CCJ per se, but with the assistance of the CCJ. What is being proposed, and of course this would be a matter for the Parliament and the President to decide on, is that there be a committee set up that would oversee the process of transition. And that committee would consist of persons from Suriname, of course, from the Bar Association here, the legal institutions here, whether it's the Anton de Kamp University. It would consist of persons from the judiciary here, President Roselbachs or others. So all of these persons, somebody from the government itself. We'd also have somebody from the Caribbean community, somebody from the Commission, the Regional Judicial Legal Service Commission, who else? Somebody from the Trust Fund, and it will be headed by a past president of the Caribbean Court of Justice. So all of those persons will be charged with the responsibility of making sure all the steps necessary to the inauguration of the chamber takes place and take place in a timely way.
And having an own chamber in Suriname, does it have only benefits for Suriname or also for the region?
benefits for Suriname, but also for the region. For many years, we had a Dutch judge, if you will, or a civil law judge on the CCJ, Justice Jacob Witt, who I know is very well known here in Suriname. And he decided cases not just in international law, but also in the common law. And we benefited tremendously from his knowledge and his experience. I thought that, and my predecessor, Justice Saunders, has said many times that he thought that Justice Witt was the most valuable member of the bench. So having people steep in the civil law brings a new perspective, a new idea as to how things can be done in the judicial system. So that having that chamber, I think, would be very, very useful for us, because we can learn from the civil law system, and likewise the civil law system can learn from us. We are hoping at the CCJ that very soon we will have at least one member, a permanent member of the main bench, who is an expert in civil law, so that we can have that cross-fertilization of the common law and the civil law systems.
If Suriname decides to join the CCG, it will be country number?
It will be country number 6. So that will be about half of our 12, roughly, of our 12 member states. I should say a couple of things. One is that we're hoping to have a courtesy visit with Her Excellency, the President, tomorrow. And assuming that it's convenient for her office, we obviously would want to discuss some of these issues as she considers appropriate. And the other thing I would say is that Suriname is a very important member of the community, and Suriname has shown tremendous leadership attributes in the community. I keep telling the story that before I came to the court, I was at the community secretariat. I was a general counsel, and when I arrived, there was a question about adopting the CARICOM passport, and I was told that we have been trying to do this for the past 8-10 years. Nobody would adopt the CARICOM passport. And I said, why? And the answer was, look, there's no guarantee that anybody else will adopt the CARICOM passport. Can you imagine changing your national passport, national emblems, into a CARICOM region, and then nobody else follows you? So I approached then Ambassador Norma Suknandon, and I explained that it would be wonderful if we could get one country to go forward with the CARICOM passport. She said she would speak with the President of Suriname, and she did, President Ganesh. And I subsequently spoke with him as well. We had a robust discussion about the pros and cons of going forward, and he saw the downsides, that if he went forward and nobody else, then that would be a problem. But he decided that he would. So Suriname became the very first country in the entire community to adopt the CARICOM passport. And since then, every other member state has adopted the CARICOM passport. So that is real leadership. And I think that if Suriname was to also adopt the civil law chamber, as you said, there could be some confluence of interest. We could benefit as well, the common law system. But more critically, I think that there is a possibility that other Dutch or civil law systems in the region might consider joining that chamber. So we have St. Martin possibly, we have Curaçao, we have near the Dutch Antilles and so on. So there is a possibility of expanding beyond our present confines once we have that leadership initiative taken by Suriname.